situations.
Understanding the power dynamics.
Right. So we've seen how the Constitution has those built-in checks.
Through Parliament and the courts.
It's about preventing abuse while still allowing the government to take action.
That's the balance, right?
Okay, so let's move on to some real-world examples.
Sounds good.
Specifically, let's look at President's Rule.
Okay. We know it's invoked when a state government can't function.
According to the Constitution.
Right, and it's been used over 100 times since 1950.
Wait, over 100?
Yep, that's like twice a year on average.
Wow. So pretty much every state has been under President's Rule.
Most of them, yeah.
And I'm guessing it hasn't always been smooth sailing.
Oh, no, not at all.
What kind of issues have come up?
Well, there have been accusations of using this power for political reasons.
Like just to get rid of an opposition party.
Exactly. Sometimes a new party at the center.
They come in and just dismiss state governments run by the other side.
It's happened a lot, actually, which raises those concerns about misuse.
Yeah, it seems like a way to grab power.
It can be.
But surely there must be times when it was truly necessary.
Of course.
Like in the Baumai case.
That's a good example.
What happened there?
The court supported dismissing BJP-led governments in 3 states.
Why?
They weren't enforcing a ban.
A ban on what?
On certain religious organizations. The central government had put that ban in place.
So they weren't following a directive.
Exactly. The court said secularism is fundamental to the Constitution.
Right.
And that actions against it could justify President's Rule.
So even with the risk of misuse, the courts are there to make sure things are done right.
They are.
What about Dr. Ambedkar? What was his take on President's Rule?
Well, he really hoped it wouldn't be used much at all.
He called it a dead letter, right?
He did. He thought it should only be used in very specific situations.
Not for political reasons.
Right. Only when absolutely necessary.
But it hasn't stayed a dead letter, has it?
No. H.V. Kamath, another member of the Constituent Assembly, said it best.
What was that?
Dr. Ambedkar is dead, and the articles are very much alive.
So that intention versus reality thing.
Yeah, that's the heart of it.
Okay, so we know the courts can step in and review.
They can.
But what are they looking for? What are their guidelines?
Well, the Baumai case set those up.
Right.
The president's decision has to be based on facts.
Solid evidence.
Yep, not just because they feel like it.
So it's not just about politics or revenge.
Yeah.
And the burden of proof is on the central government.
It is. They have to justify their actions.
And the courts can even put a state government back in power.
If they find that President's Rule was imposed illegally.
Wow, so they have a lot of power.
They do. It's about keeping that balance.
So the Baumai case also said that the state assembly can only be dissolved.
After Parliament approves the President's Rule.
Right.
And remember, the court also said a new party in power can't just
dismiss state governments from the other party.
That's a no-no. It's about preventing that abuse of power.
Okay, so there are safeguards. It's not a free-for-all.
Exactly.
So the Baumai case was really important for defining how this works.
It was. It made it very clear that this is an exceptional power.
Not to be used lightly.
Exactly.
So we've talked about how the courts keep President's Rule in check.
They play a vital role.
Now, what about financial emergency? We said earlier that it's never actually been used.
That's right.
Even during tough times. Why is that?
Well, it's a pretty drastic measure.
In what way?
It kind of tells the world that India is in serious economic trouble.
Which might scare off investors.
It could.
And the government doesn't want to do that.
No, not unless it's absolutely necessary.
Plus, giving the central government control over state finances.
That's going to cause pushback from the states.
Definitely.
So it's a last resort option.
Kind of like declaring economic war.
Exactly.
So they've used other ways to deal with these situations.
Like fiscal adjustments, monetary policy changes.
Stuff like that.
Yep. And sometimes seeking help from international organizations.
Okay, so financial emergency is there if they absolutely need it.
It is.
But they found other ways to handle things so far.
They have.
Makes sense. But we should still talk about the criticisms of financial emergency.
Oh, definitely.
What are some of the concerns?
Well, one of the biggest ones is that it undermines state autonomy.
Because the central government can basically take over their finances.
Right. They can tell states how to spend their money.
Even going so far as to
reduce salaries for state employees.
Wow. I bet the states wouldn't like that.
No, they wouldn't.
It really does disrupt that federal balance.
It does.
Okay, so we've looked at all 3 types of emergencies now.
We have.
And it seems like there's this recurring theme.
Of balance.
Yeah, between a strong central government and the autonomy of the states.
It's a classic question in democracies all over the world.
How do you create that balance?
Right.
You need a strong central government for crises, but you don't want to give them too much power.
Exactly.
It's like walking a tightrope.
It is. And in India, that balance is constantly evolving.
The framers of the Constitution did a pretty good job, though.
They did. They put in checks and balances.
Like parliamentary approval, judicial review.
To prevent things from going too far.
But they also knew that sometimes you need a strong central government.
Especially in a crisis.
And these provisions have allowed India to deal with some pretty big challenges.
They have.
All while staying a democracy.
That's the key.
It shows how adaptable the Constitution is.
It's a living document, that's for sure.
It changes with the times.
It has to.
Okay, before we go any further, I want to remind our listeners,
Especially those studying for the UPSC exam.
this stuff is more than just memorization.
Oh, definitely.
It's about understanding the complexities
The history, the debates, the different interpretations.
and how power actually works in India.
Exactly.
But for everyone else who's not taking the exam,
This is still important.
yeah, it's about being an informed citizen.
Knowing your rights, understanding the system.
Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit now.
Okay.
We're going to focus on that last type of emergency,
Financial emergency.
the one that's never actually been used.
The mystery emergency.
Exactly. Ready to tackle that financial emergency.
Let's do it. We've talked about the other two.
National emergency, president's rule.
But this one is kind of a mystery.
It's never actually been used in India.
That's what makes it so interesting, right?
Definitely. So let's unravel it, shall we? First things first. When can a financial emergency be declared?
Well, you have to look at Article 360 of the Constitution.
Okay.
It basically says that the president can declare one
If what?
if they believe India's financial stability is in danger.
The whole country's.
Yeah. Or even just a part of it.
So like a specific region.
Exactly.
And
It's
states-
all about giving the central government the power to step in.
When there's a financial crisis.
Right.
Okay, so let's say the president thinks a financial emergency is needed.
Yeah.
What happens next?
It's pretty similar to the other emergencies.
So proclamation from the president.
Yep.
And then,
Parliamentary approval.
got it. They have to sign off on it.
They do.
And once it's approved, what happens then?
Well, that's when the central government gains a lot of control
Control over what?
over state finances. It's about creating a unified response to the crisis.
So what does that actually mean? What kind of control?
They can basically tell states how to handle their budgets.
Really?
Yeah. They can direct them to reduce spending, cut programs, even reduce salaries.
Wow, salaries for state government employees.
That's right.
That seems pretty extreme.
It is.
I can imagine states wouldn't be too happy about that,
Oh, absolutely not.
especially those that value their own financial independence.
Right. It can definitely create tension.
It goes against that idea of federalism, doesn't it?
It does. Some critics say it gives the central government way too much power.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's like that balancing act again.
Right. You need that strong central response, but you don't want to take away all the power from the states.
Exactly. And that might be why India has never used this.
Even during the 1991 crisis.
Even then.
Interesting.
I think declaring a financial emergency would just create chaos.
Yeah, it would spook investors, wouldn't it?
Sure.
So maybe it's like that emergency brake.
Yeah,
Only use it if absolutely necessary.
that's a good way to put it.
But it's still in the Constitution for a reason.
It is.
The framers knew that economic crises could happen.
They wanted to be prepared.
Okay, well, even though it's never been used, we still need to understand it.
Absolutely, especially for the UPSC exam.
It's all part of that big picture.
It is.
But even for everyone else listening,
It's good to know about this stuff.
it's part of our Constitution.
And it shows how India handles crises.
Well, I think we've covered a lot today. All three types of emergencies, how they work, the criticisms, the checks and balances.
We even talked about some real-world examples.
Like the Bombay case.
That one was important.
It really showed how the courts can step in and make sure these powers aren't abused.
They play a crucial role.
This has been quite a journey.
It has.
It shows how the Constitution is always evolving, adapting to the changing world.
It's a living document for sure.
And it's a testament to those who created it. They created a system that has helped India through some tough times.
While protecting its democratic values.
And for those starting their UPSC journey, I hope this has been helpful.
It's about understanding the big picture, the nuances, the debates.
It's not just about memorizing facts.
No, it's about understanding how India works.
And for everyone else, this is a chance to engage with the Constitution.
To learn about your rights, the system of government,
It's about being informed.
and engaged.
Exactly.
Because ultimately, the strength of a democracy lies in its citizens.
Well said. Thank you for joining us for this deep